Grief is such an overpowering emotion, especially after losing someone so close to you. It can take months, years, even decades to get back to normal, if that's even possible after experiencing a significant loss. This podcast was created to help you move through and release the emotions, allowing you to heal the hurt and begin living again. Listen in as I chat with medical professionals, grief workers, and people who have first-hand experience in losing a loved one, what their experience has been, and what they did to help heal themselves and those around them. Life isn't always sunshine and rainbows, but I believe there is always a silver lining if you're willing to look. Welcome to the Release Podcast. Hi. Welcome to another episode of Release Grief Podcast. Today I am here with the wonderful John Morgan. And John, tell me a little bit about why you decided to come onto this podcast that's talking all about grief.
Well, it all started, I can't believe I'm saying this, a year and a half ago.
Wow. Okay.
It's crazy to me that it's been that long. So my wife and I, like her big thing that made her so excited was she started selling these nail strips.
Okay.
So we would go to Cambridge and we would sell these things that was so bonding.
Mm-hmm.
And the last trip, we got COVID. Both of us did. I
Oh,
got
wow.
really sick. But after 10 days, I pulled out of it. And then she got really sick. And I thought she was going to be okay until she started asking me to bring the Vicks ventilator thing into the room. And the next thing I knew, she was in the hospital. And then 3 weeks later, she was gone. I could not believe. I mean, you don't imagine you're going to go through this at like 50 years old.
No, I don't imagine I would think about going through that at any age.
Yeah.
At any age. And so and what was her name?
Lena.
Lena. And you
Actually,
guys
it
were
was,
married.
she had the most beautiful name. Lena Rose was actually her name.
Oh, that is
Um,
beautiful.
we were married for 25 years,
Wow. Okay.
and I had her stepson, or my stepson rather, Anthony, and then we had two kids together who are now 17 and 19, and they've been pretty amazing through all this. So,
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I can't imagine being married for 25 years and then, losing the person that you thought you'd be tripping with your cane and pushing over,
right,
in the rocking chair and stuff. I tell my husband this all the time. We've got 17 years and almost 18. And like, I couldn't imagine, you know, because when you marry someone, you think about, at least I do anyway, I think about what it's going to be like in old age. Like, is this the person that I really want to be in my old age with?
right.
Like, okay, yeah, I'd totally trip him, of course.
That's the thing I think I miss the most is that, like, I sort of imagined this world where we were going to grow old together and all these things were going to happen, and it just didn't turn out that way. It's crazy.
So talk to me about, you said that you guys had went and did these nail strips and you were selling them together. You went with her on a trip and you both got COVID. You had it first for
Yep.
10 days and then she had it for how long did she have it for?
She had it for about 10 days, and like I said, it looked like she was going to be okay. And then
Yeah,
all of a sudden, she was having breathing problems. And so she went to the hospital, and back then they were still really stringent about the sort of protocols with, like, I couldn't go in with her or anything like
right.
that. And so she went in, they gave her the monoclonal antibodies and all that stuff. And they said, come back tomorrow if you're not okay. And the next day she wasn't okay.
Okay.
And, and so they put her on a BiPAP for a week. And then the 3 weeks following, she was on a ventilator. I will still never forget. I will never forget when, right before we put her on the ventilator, she kissed me and she said, I wanted to spend the rest of my life with you. I just didn't think it would happen this fast. And it was like, wow.
Almost like she knew.
It's like she knew. Yeah. It was
That's
so,
crazy. But
yeah.
you got to see her before she went on the ventilator and stuff?
Yeah, like these were the moments before. Like they sent me out of the room, and the next thing I knew, she was on a ventilator. And then the first few weeks, and she was on for 3 weeks. And the first few weeks were like we were hopeful. And then all of a sudden, her CO2 shot through the roof. And Dr. Farkas, who was an amazing, amazing doctor, said that the COVID had just pretty much wiped out the sacs that I don't even understand this. It's like there's sacs in your lungs or something that just
Mhm.
do the CO2 oxygen exchange. And she said they're gone. And they pulled her off of sedation, and she just wasn't there. And it was it was the most intense time of my life.
I imagine. I imagine. So when that happened, what were you doing? What were you thinking at that point in time? I mean, maybe you weren't thinking at that point in time, just consumed with emotion.
It was it was terrifying. I don't like my memories are kind of hit and miss. Um, while she was in the hospital, I don't remember a whole lot. I remember what happened afterwards. I remember when we finally turned off the ventilator, coming home, and I mean to tell you, every minute felt like an hour. It was crazy those first few weeks.
Yeah, that would be, I have no words to even comprehend this. Just wow. With the whole, so you come home and you still have two young children because they were younger at the time, what, 15 and 17, roughly?
Roughly.
And what were they going through? Like, how were you able to, or what was going on in the household at that time with the young children, with mom being in the hospital, with dad just like, this is, I'm guessing, the first time you've had to experience anything like this. Because it doesn't seem like this is a thing that most people experience.
Well, sort of. My brother was 49 when he died.
Oh, wow.
He had a sudden heart attack. So it was 2015 or 16.
Okay.
And the year before that, my dad died, and just I've been losing a lot of people. The only person I have left is my mom. So
Gotcha. Was it just you and your brother then?
yeah, um, he was he was an amazing human being. Like he he served at the soup kitchen, and he helped everybody out, and he just did all the right things, and he exercised and just did everything right. And I could not believe it when he died of a heart attack at 49.
Right. Yeah, that's quite young. It's
Yeah,
very quite young. Well, talk to me. I know you had sent me some stuff ahead of time
yeah.
about Lena. Can you tell me like what type of person was she like? Like, because the stuff you sent me was, I'll let you talk about it. Just tell me a little bit about Miss Lena.
She was this really, she was very spunky. She had this wonderful personality about her, and and the thing was like she was really family oriented.
Okay.
So when her dad died in 2006, and then her mom died in 2008, at that point she kind of fell to pieces, and things were never really the same after that. Um, like she tried so hard to be okay, but she wasn't.
Hmm.
And then her sister died.
Oh, wow.
She had a brother and a sister that also died when she was younger. Like she was sort of the last of the Mohicans there, and she was kind of a mess, and everything just changed after her mom died.
So when you say she was kind of a mess, was it like she in depression? Are
Yeah,
you reading? Is that
she
me?
was really depressed.
Oh, that was me. I'm so sorry. I thought I had all my notifications turned off for this. So anyway, I'm sorry. Go back to that. So what you said that she wasn't quite right after that, or things weren't right after that.
She was just not really okay. And sometimes I wonder, I mean, you don't know about these things, but I wonder if she wasn't basically giving up when she was in the hospital because she wanted to be with her parents. And for as much as she loved us, she was pretty burnt out on losing all these people. So
Yeah, I could imagine. Hold on just a second. My phone is going crazy over here. I'm not sure if you can hear it on the other side, but it's driving me insane, with the buzzing and the ticking and the all the notifications coming in. So what type of relationship did she have with the children?
um she loved her kids to death. I mean, like that was her life. She loved her kids. And it was kind of funny because I have this, okay, so talking about the two kids we had together,
Mhm.
Jenna, who became Jake and had super short hair. And then we had Trevor, who has the most glorious hair you've ever seen in your life. Oh my God. I mean, his hair. So what happened was when he was 12, I told him, I said, look, you're old enough to decide what you want to do with your hair.
Uh-huh.
And so I said, you tell me when you wanted to get another haircut. Next haircut came when he was 18. And that was only to trim the split ends because he was getting his senior pictures taken. He's had one hair, let's see, he's 19 now. He's had one haircut in the last 7 years.
Wow.
Glorious hair.
Oh, I bet. I don't know what it is. So like the guys have like the long lashes and the long luxuriously flowing locks and and all of us women are like, oh, I wish my lashes were so long and have this long luxuriously natural curly hair and blah 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 blah. And of course the guys are all blessed with it. It would make sense.
Sure. Okay, now we're going to walk into the most terrifying part of all this.
Okay.
So, let's see. She died on December 3rd, 2021. It was January 25th. And it was the weirdest thing because I worry so much about people because you just don't know what you're going to do.
Right.
And I remember one night I was just laying in bed and it wasn't even a conscious decision. I just started taking these sleeping pills one by one, after
Mm.
another, after another, after another. I didn't decide it was going to do anything. It was so weird. Like it's so surreal to me at this point because looking back, it wasn't really a decision. I was just doing it.
Right.
And the next thing I knew, I was in Lincoln Memorial Hospital and I was there for 11 days. And so much of the first 5 days is terrifying because it was just like it was not the hospital. No one could convince me I was in the hospital.
Really?
And I remember they kept coming to me and saying, do you know where you are? And I was like, yes, I'm at LMH. And I didn't believe them. But then on the sixth day, I started coming out of it. They moved me up to the fourth floor where I could recover a little bit more. And looking back, I don't even know how I made it through all that because they told my mom the first night that I probably wouldn't make it through the night. And if I did, I'd probably be in a nursing home the rest of my night. The
Because of
rest,
the pills you took?
yeah. Um,
Okay.
and it was just so crazy. The
So
things,
how long after, so when this night happened, when you started taking those pills, how long had it been since Lena had passed?
a month and a half.
A month and a half. Okay.
Yeah, and again, it's so weird looking back because it wasn't like a decision. I didn't sit there and say I'm going to do this. I just
Right.
started.
It just one lead just kept going and going.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And then when I came home,
So who found you? How did you get to the hospital?
so my mom was really worried about me back then,
Okay.
and she said she doesn't know why, but she came in to the house that night to check on me because she was worried. And apparently, if it had been an hour or two later, I wouldn't be here. Um,
Right.
and so she called the ambulance, and
Mm.
that was crazy to me. So crazy.
Yeah. I could imagine being a parent walking into that with your child too.
Yeah. And then it was, let's see, I came home, was using a walker because I couldn't hardly even.
Okay.
And I have this friend, Dwight. This goes back a long way. Me and Dwight know each other for, I think, 30 years. We are, we were in the Licking County 4-H band together. And he said, I have somebody you have to meet.
Okay.
So he gave me this guy's phone number, Rich, probably my best friend at this point. I'll never forget. I didn't even know what day of the week it was, so I went
How
ahead and
long was
called
it?
Rich. I had no. It
How long had it taken you when you were in the hospital to get out of the hospital before they released you? What's the time lapse there?
was 11 days.
11
It,
days from the time you went in, or 11 days since you went in before you were released?
it was actually, it would have been 10 days, except there was this massive snowstorm, and uh, and I was trying to figure out how I could possibly get out of there at that point.
Mm.
And so my mom's husband, Jack, wonderful guy, he managed to fight through the snowstorm and come pick me up. And so it was 11 days.
Okay. And so at this time you're coming home, you're in a walker,
Yep.
and your best friend introduced you to a gentleman named Jack.
Rich.
Rich. I'm sorry. Oh,
Excellent.
Jack is your stepfather. Gotcha. Gotcha. I'm trying to keep them all straight here.
It's a whole mess of a story. So
It's okay.
Rich was starting up a Celebrate Recovery at one of the local churches.
Okay.
And I'll never forget, again, I didn't really know what day of the week it was or anything. I was still kind of, you know, kind of out
Hmm.
there. So I called him, and it happened to be Valentine's Day. And he took an hour out to talk to me. Never met me before or anything, and put his whole dinner on hold with his wife and everything. And that was the beginning of a pretty amazing friendship. And I probably owe more to Rich than anybody on this planet.
Yeah. Why is that?
He just took the time out, and remember, I think it was the next week he came over to my house and sat there with me for a while talking about everything, and he guided me through a lot. So
Yeah. And you said he started up a grief group,
Celebrate Recovery. It's
a
basically,
recovery group. Okay.
it's like a Christian version of AA, kind of.
Okay. Because of so when you took the sleeping pills, had you done that before?
No,
No, nothing like that. So this was just completely out of the blue, probably because of the grief, I would assume so.
right.
Um, the intense grief from losing Lena.
Yeah.
Man,
The last year and a half has been such a journey. So much has happened. I mean, it's like you think you're okay, and then you're not okay, and then you think you're okay, and you're not okay. And you got to start sorting out kind of who you are and what's going on at that point because it gets
right.
real confusing. Um,
Yeah. So what have you been doing to be able to like sort that stuff out and separate it all and figure out who you are?
Uh, well, at the time I'd been working at a job for 6 years, and I'll never forget. It was in June. I put my resume out on LinkedIn and I said, I got to make a change. The next thing I knew, I was working at another job. and,
Oh,
and,
wow.
and then I was door dashing on the side to supplement my income because she was an MSA. And all of a sudden, we didn't have her income anymore.
Hmm.
Or an MA. MSA is where she worked. Um, and so there was this local pizzeria that, like, we used to order wings from like 3 or 4 days a week, and we'd watch movies and eat wings. I remember walking in there one day and the manager said, listen, why don't you quit door dashing and come work for us? You'll make more money in less time. I said, okay, what the heck. All of a sudden I had two different jobs than I had before, and that
Okay.
was huge. I have a friend when I was in high school. It's been 52. Wow, it's been so long ago. When I was in high school, I had this friend Chris, and him and I kind of stayed in touch over the years. We used to record music together,
Okay.
and he said, "I sent you a musical care package." I about fell out of my chair because he must have spent $1,000, bought me a microphone and all kinds of stuff. And he said, "Listen, you need to start writing music again because that's what's going to help you heal."
Right.
And that was huge. I cannot believe the support I've had from so many people. It's been pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
It is kind of crazy, like when you go through a substantial loss, how the people kind of rally around you to help you, to, they don't know exactly what to do, but they try their best to, you know, help, give you
Right.
care packages. I know when we lost our daughter, uh we had an ungodly amount of people showing up at our house, like bringing us food. They didn't want to stay, they weren't staying, they were just dropping food off because they knew we have a huge family anyway, and so they knew that we would have a ton of people, coming and going, and so they made sure that we didn't have to worry about food for the next several weeks. Like, it was that big, such a big pouring of people. It was
Yeah,
pretty impressive.
it was funny because this I had this friend from high school, and he married a girl, and they had a stepdaughter Angela, who we became kind of close to. And I'll never forget, out of the blue, she showed up with lasagna one day. And
Mhm.
I was like, wow. Um, it's just amazing what people will do in a
It
track.
is.
I think the hardest thing through all of this has been trying to figure out who I am again after all these years because my identity was always husband.
Yeah.
I took care of my wife, I took care of my kids. That's what I love to do. And when you lose all that, you really feel lost for a while. And and your emotions get super out of control. Like, it's so hard to explain. There were just some things that happened that I didn't understand at the time emotionally. It
Yeah.
was crazy.
Yeah, I remember being angry for no reason, just like the wind would blow a certain direction and I would just, anger would consume me.
Yeah.
And it just, you'd say words that, you don't really mean. Why are these things coming out of my mouth? This is not how what I want to say. And I don't want to be mean to anyone, but yet here I am, here they come, and just like word vomiting everywhere. And it's like, it's just in the throes of grief, it's hard. It's hard to, for me, it was hard to emotionally regulate. I had such a hard time with and then should I feel sadness here? Should I feel here? Because I went through a phase, what I call the nothingness. Nothing mattered. I felt nothing.
I
Food
know.
tasted like nothing. all of these things. And I can't pinpoint the time when I came out of it either. I just know that when I was in it, and I remember being vividly in it, and vividly, like, nothing in my world mattered at all. Nothing. And it was a hard place to come out of, but eventually I did. Eventually it was, my husband brought me out of it, thankfully. And it was to tell me to go listen to some NDEs, which are near death experiences online. And so I finally started listening to him, and because he hounded me because I was just sitting there. I was doing nothing. My life stood still. I was a problem solver. I am a problem solver. And it was hard for me to not be able to fix this problem.
Right.
Hardest problem in my whole world, and I couldn't fix it. And I knew that I never would be able to, with this one. I would have to learn to live and adapt with it. And that, hence why this podcast is even around, like learning to live and adapt with it and help others share their stories of grief and their stories of how they've survived it and what they've done to, kind of help themselves through it, if that makes sense.
It's been weird. I'll tell you that. So much has happened over the last year and a half, and I'm still kind of processing. But I think the biggest thing, how do I say this? It's so hard to believe when you are there, when it's happening to you, that things will get better. And they do
Right.
get better. But whew, it is quite a
It
journey.
doesn't ever feel like it.
Yeah. There were so many things that happened on other emotional levels. Obviously, music is huge to me.
Mm-hmm.
And my son Trevor is named after a guy named Trevor Rabin, who was in Yes in the 1980s.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, 1994, he left and he started doing soundtrack work. That's all he did all these years. And a few weeks ago, I got so excited because after being like off the radar for 30 years, he announced he was releasing a new rock album. And it's so wonderful. And it's so exciting for me because I cannot believe this guy my son is named after is doing new music like that. And that was intense. Like, that meant a lot to me.
Nice. So from what I'm hearing is that you're diving back into the music world, and you must have a big background in it. You said in high school you were in a music, is it a band that you were at in high school?
Uh, it wasn't a band. So me and Chris, between the two of us, we played everything. We could both play drums. He played bass and guitar. I played keyboards, and so we recorded music on a four-track cassette based mixer, which doesn't exist anymore. And oh man, I cannot believe how recordings changed. When Chris sent me all that stuff, I'm like, what is an interface?
You're like, I need to go back to school just to understand this stuff and learn
Yeah,
how to use it.
yep. So there was that. I was a percussionist in marching band for 5 years, in the 4-H band for 9 years, and actually today I still write the 4-H bands. It's my 25th year. 25th year I write their cadences and teach them to the kids over a
Oh,
weekend.
nice.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
that's wonderful.
so.
Well, that's fantastic. So what are some ways, so what are you doing now? What are some ways that you've tapped into to help yourself with the grief and stuff? Because you seem to be doing much better than where you were at.
So much better. It's really it's the same thing. I write music and I have fun with it, and that's how I make it through everything. So
Are you involved in any groups, any meetings, church?
celebrate recovery. I go to church on Sunday.
Oh, nice. Fantastic. Because there was a lady that tagged you in a post that I put out to be on a podcast, correct?
Yep. Yep. That's how
And
I landed in all of this. I'm still surprised I'm doing it. And I'm not as scared as I was half an hour ago. So
well, that's good. I hope it wasn't that scary for you to be on here. It is kind of scary though when you think about telling your story. Sometimes it's like, what are the questions they're going to ask? How deep are they going to dive? How am I going to react to it? What are all the, the thoughts and emotions am I going to be feeling throughout this whole journey, with this podcast, whether it's 15 minutes or an hour long? It can be kind of daunting.
I was mildly terrified because I'm like super emotional. I'm sitting here like, am I going to be bawling through this whole thing?
And it's okay if you are. I mean, you might not like it, but I mean, it is what it is. And on my end, I'm like, whatever. I mean, that's what you do, then that's what you do.
Remember
So
the first few months at Celebrate Recovery, like, so there's like a large group and then a small group. And the small group is just like personal sharing.
mhm.
Those first few months, you could ask anybody there. All I did was bawl through the whole hour. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And
Are you normally emotional like that?
extremely, yeah.
Okay. So you were even before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay. Okay. Because I know for men, like it's this big thing about them not crying or about them not, showing the emotions and different things like that. So I find it kind of refreshing when guys say that they shed the tears and they have the emotions and all of those things instead of suppressing them down. For women too, because women get told to suppress them as well. So
It was weird growing up because, my mom's pretty emotional like me, and she was totally good with me. And then my dad, he was, the factory worker, and he was really disappointed that I was that emotional. And so it was kind of a struggle growing up.
sure. Sure. Sounds like it was a pretty good experience though at the recovery place.
Oh, yeah.
And they
Yep.
were okay with everything, right? They embraced you with loving arms and
Oh,
all that.
sure.
Good.
Amazing. Wonderful people. I got most of my current best friends out of that. So,
Well, it ain't too shabby then.
yeah.
Plus,
Particularly Rich. Rich has been so amazing with me. Great
and he
guy.
runs it.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the podcast. I appreciate you opening up and talking about losing Lena and what it meant for you and going through all of those emotions and the hardships and all of the things. Um, if you could leave the listeners with one final thought, what would it be?
It would be no matter how bad it feels, just keep pushing ahead because it does get better. It really does. It just takes time and you got to work your way through it.
I agree. I think that is 100% true. No matter how much time or how hard it feels, like give it a little bit of time, a little bit of sinking into it, because it's almost like I think of it as getting a big major flesh wound. At first it's like it's catastrophic. You have to like bandage the wound and everything is in there. All the emotions are there. It's painful and it hurts, all the things. But then as time moves on, it kind of like starts to heal, starts to form a scar or a scab over the top of it, and you start doing the healing process. The wound will always be there. It'll just be in a
Right.
different phase of healing.
Yeah, I got a little bit motivated after I got out of the hospital. Like I said, I came home on a walker,
Yeah.
and after one day, I said, "Screw this," and I grabbed a cane and I managed to hobble around on a cane. And 2 weeks later, I was walking around fine, and that was just like brute force will. And it was funny. I remember. So the first 5 days in the hospital, you got to understand, I was not there. I saw things. I didn't believe where I was and all that. And I'll never forget that 6th day when the doctor came into my room, and I looked at him and I said, "Oh my God, you're real," because I didn't know what was real at that point.
Right?
And
Okay.
he just laughed and he said, "That's all I need to know."
Crying news, you passed today's assessment. Well,
I had
that's
such
fantastic.
wonderful, wonderful, amazing caregivers over there. It was pretty wild.
And
In
what
fact,
state do you live in? Where were you at?
I'm in Ohio,
Ohio. Okay.
yeah, Newark, Ohio, which is sort of 45 minutes east of Columbus.
Okay.
Sort of a small town, but not really small anymore. It was small when I was growing up. It's kind of big now. And it is an interesting place to live.
Yeah.
My wife, I'll tell you this, this is kind of funny. We were pioneers of internet dating. She was from
Okay.
Queens.
Queens.
And in 1997, we were in an America Online chat room, and that's where we met. Yep. And the rest is history. So
AOL.
she didn't talk, she talked.
She talked
Yeah.
from the Bronx.
Yeah. And I
She,
actually I moved there for, let's see, I moved to New York and we lived there for 3 or 4 years. And then I became one of the infamous Pocono commuters. We bought a house in the Poconos and I took a bus into the city every day, which was like 2 hours each way. And you just,
holy.
yep. I was into a niche industry called investment banking graphics.
Huh. I don't think I've ever heard of it.
Yeah, it's like you've got to have really high-end Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Photoshop, Illustrator, and this obscure program called Map Info. So it was a fun time. I kind of
Yeah.
miss
And
those.
then you moved back to Ohio?
Yeah, in 2010 we moved back to Ohio, um, and all kinds of crazies. I cannot believe that it was that long ago. This is nuts.
There's a song called Time Marches On that I feel it every day in my bones. Time marches on no matter what.
It just don't slow down. I'm sitting here thinking to myself the other day, oh my God, my mom's 75. What the heck?
Right?
I
I hear
remember the first time I asked her how old she was, and she said 32. So that's been a long time ago.
it's been a hot minute. Yeah,
Yeah.
it has been a hot minute. Well, John, I appreciate you being on here. And thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. And I look forward to seeing more success from you online and following your journey even more.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate
You're
it.
no problem. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this special episode of Release. All the links plus a few extras are posted in the show notes below. And if you think someone you know could benefit by listening to this episode, please share it with them. And as always, keep going, keep being, keep doing. You are amazing.